Okay, what is a negative communication pattern? How do you get into it? How do you get out of it? What the hell is trying to communicate with another person? Someone in the chat said, I wish people would understand that communication is more than just words. And that's absolutely true. So when we talk about communication, the first thing to understand is, what is communication? Communication is trying to empathize. It's true. When you look at it at the root, it's empathy. It's understanding someone else's experience. It's understanding how somebody else internalizes information, and it's learning. It's learning about their experience. And hopefully in that communication, you both connect with one another on a deeper way that actually radiates out a higher understanding for both of your realities. When we talk about communication on Earth, we've been really misled about what communication is. We've been really, our telepathic abilities have been interrupted, and our ability to truly connect with one another has been derailed to more of a selfish way of thinking. One of the things that is utilized a lot in our society is us versus them thinking. This is a really effective way of banding together a group. If any of you know why I started Unicult, it's because groups of people are the most powerful force on the planet. One of the easiest ways to get groups of people working together is through fear. To say us versus them. We are the good guys, those are the bad guys. And that energy bands a group together in a really strong way. While that can be beneficial for a lot of different reasons, because groups of people are very powerful when they work together, at the root, it's a toxic, destructive energy. So we do not use that ideology in Unicult. We do not use that approach. We never use us versus them. As I spent the whole first part of the of this Cam Church talking about incorporating the ideas and opinions and needs and wants of the haters, of the trolls. We have to open up our minds to understand that us versus them is not a healthy way of being. It's not a healthy paradigm. It doesn't get you very far. Because so many groups of people have been using us versus them. So many groups of people have come together under us versus them. Most subcultures, countries, companies, most groups of people operate under us versus them. This is such a widely overused, toxic framework for understanding our connection with one another. It's even gone so far as to go into our understanding of evolution as far as a competitive thing. I believe that competition exists. I'm not denying that it doesn't, but I believe that the lens by which we look at evolution is really interesting in the sense that we mostly focus on competition when there are endless examples of symbiosis and of different species and different animals working together. So if we start to realize that nature really thrives, groups really thrive with a symbiotic understanding where we help one another out, where we both work to help one another out. That's harmony. That's divinity. That's the true nature of reality. And eventually that will be the unifying force of this planet. Unicult is the first group to really understand that and put that at the forefront that I know of. So why is this important when we're talking about communication? We're talking about how we interact with one another. It's because we have been so deeply programmed by us versus them programming in every aspect of our beings that when we come together in what we are attempting to be a unified relationship, whether it be romantic or not, when two people or a group of people even come together to unify themselves, to unify their energy or their efforts, we still bring us versus them energy into it because we're so deeply trained. I went to the Lana Del Rey concert, and this couple was fighting behind me in the line for the food, and I literally turned around and I helped them because I was like, I couldn't stand to listen to it. It was like it was me versus you, me versus you, me versus you. And they were just going to battle. And I said, what's your goal here? I said, you're just trying to win. Both of you are just trying to win. What are you trying to win? And that's where we really have to acknowledge and understand, what is the point of these negative communication patterns? This takes incredible self-assessment. This takes incredible strength, and this takes incredible awareness about your own actions and your own behavior when it comes to communication, when it comes to expressing your pain, expressing your soul to someone else. So what I'm telling you today is not easy. It takes incredible, sustained effort, but it is absolutely worth it, and we all need to learn it. So when you're in a difficult communication with someone, a conflicts are going to happen. That's okay. We have different realities. All of us do. So when we face one another and we go into what we feel like is a battle, which is actually just a confrontation, which is actually just a conflict, a lot of times we bring the armor, we bring the wit, we bring the undercutting nature of trying to overwhelm somebody with either logic or emotion so that we can win. But we just have to recognize that that is not the highest form of communication. When you're looking at all of your relationships, when you're looking at all of your interactions, you have to ask yourself, what is my goal? And this, again, it takes incredible effort. Please understand that. Let's say you are mad at someone. Someone really did you wrong, and you're mad at them. And you're like, I'm going to tell them blah, 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 and how I feel. And if you stop and you check in with yourself and you say, what is my goal here? What do I really want? Do you really want them to understand, or do you really want them to hurt? Hurting somebody else who has hurt you is a form of communication. You're trying to get them to feel what you feel. You're trying to get them to empathize with you. Unfortunately, it is not effective. That's not an effective form of communication. You're sharing energy, but you're not sharing it in a constructive way that's going to move things forward into harmony. At the root of all of our communication, our goal should be harmony. Our goal should be symbiotic energy for the betterment of both parties. You cannot argue against this, because that is the highest reality. If everyone understands each other and wants to work together to help each other, this is preschool shit. I don't understand how they teach this to preschoolers and then the whole world just operates without these concepts. When I was born on this planet, I went to preschool. I thought, wow, Earth is great. Don't know what the big deal was about. And then you get out of preschool and literally no one operates under these suppositions, which are told to preschoolers, understood by everyone, but completely ignored in our day-to-day lives. This is preschool stuff. That doesn't make it easy, because we've been absolutely brainwashed and conditioned to operate outside of what we know to be true as higher understanding concepts. When you communicate with someone, your goal should be harmony between both of you. Your goal should be understanding, compassion, and moving toward a higher reality for both of you. That's the goal. Sometimes that's hard to find. And we'll get more into this in the communication seminar, because that's a whole thing. But today we're just going to talk about when you're in a negative communication pattern with someone, how do you break out of it? Let's say you already understand that you want to get to harmony. Sometimes in my family, when I go home, as a way of communicating, we sort of bicker at each other. We sort of give these undercut jabs of like little insults. And we try to make each other laugh through these little insults. And it's ultimately harmless, right? Nobody's really hurt. Not very deeply. And it's a way for us to connect. But it has a low vibration. And the more sensitive I get to energy, the more I can't stand that low vibration. So the last couple years, I've asked myself, how can I stop this negative, jabby kind of communication, and how can I connect with my family in a way that's more harmonious? And I took responsibility. And basically, I just raised my vibration. And every time I was about to go into like the living room where everyone's sitting, I would just take a second and I would go inside myself and I would raise my vibration and I would come in with pure love. And it was a radical transformation. Even though I was just not participating in like that jabby nature of insulting people, it was more than that. It changed everyone's behavior around me. Everybody was more loving. Everybody was more kind. People do this on a subconscious level where they respond to your energy. When you can align your own energy, and this is really what we focus on with communication, is aligning your own energy to the goal of harmony. Communication is between two people. That's not everything. But you can do so much from that state. You can do so much from understanding, where am I at? How can I raise my own internal vibration? I take responsibility for my actions and my energy. And you can harmonize all of your relationships very well with that energy. Some people are very resistant to harmony. And in that case, we set boundaries. But you'll be surprised at what you can do by just internalizing your own energy. Okay, so first you have to recognize your action. You have to recognize your negative communication patterns. I had a friend tell me the other day that sometimes she feels like she fights with her husband as a way of connecting, because it's kind of an intense way of connecting. Notice where we do these things. I have a friend who texts me. Sometimes he just yells at me. And I'm like, why is this person yelling at me? And it's really confusing because I don't feel like he's really mad at me and I'm not really mad at him. And so I just had to tell him, like, I'm not trying to fight with you. And I think he's just trying to communicate with me. He's just trying to have a connection, a conversation, and he doesn't know how to do it. So we have to recognize these things. Ego wants to jump in and fight. Ego rolls up the sleeves and says, oh yeah, you're going to fight with me? Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to win. What are you going to win? You're not going to win communication. You're not going to win communication. You're not going to win harmony. All you're going to do is trigger their ego, and then you're just going to continue a negative cycle of communication. Notice where you get these negative cycles of communication. Do not feel bad if you're in one. If you have a way of communicating that's negative, that's normal. That's a Monday to Friday. I mean, that's like as normal as what's normal? I don't know. In our world, that is absolutely standard to have these kinds of negative cycles of communication. So don't feel bad, don't feel guilty. But what's really cool is that now you get to take responsibility for your energy. Now you get to take responsibility for your relationships. Now you get to take responsibility for your actions. And now you get to start practicing breaking out of it. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes incredible strength and extreme focus for over a long period of time to break out of these cycles. So number one, recognize it. Say, wow, am I trying to win or do I want harmony? From that state alone, you've got your work cut out for you. I mean, that already, like if you can recognize your negative cycles of communication and just adjust your awareness to be like, wow, I'm trying to win something here. I'm not trying to win harmony or victory for us both. I'm trying to like let my ego, like if you can just recognize that, you're already winning. Like you're already getting there. You're already like doing immense amounts of work to break out of these negative cycles, but there's more that you can do. So first, recognize it. Second of all, recognize your goals of communication. I've been saying your goal of communication is harmony, but what does that mean? When we talk about communication, usually what most people want out of a conversation is to share their feelings, be heard and be validated, and to understand the other person's experience. Through that, we hope that we find harmony. If you can acknowledge, and I recommend that you write this down because it's not always obvious to us. The goals of communication are to 1, share your experience, 2, be validated, and 3, hear the other person's experience. at that and think about it and realize that that's the goal of communication for not just you, but the other partner as well, whoever else is in your conversation, whoever else you're communicating with. And if you have a cycle of communication that's negative and you can both look at that and acknowledge it and say, okay, well, here's our little checkbox of how we communicate with one another and what we're trying to accomplish in communicating with one another. Did we cover all these checkboxes? You may be surprised to realize sometimes you just want to share your negative emotion. Sometimes you might be surprised to find out you just want somebody to understand you, but you don't want to even talk. So we have to check all these boxes. We have to share our experience. We have to have our experience understood, and the other person has to do the same. And we have to make space for all of those things. Those are your goals of communication. Again, this is two people, not just you. So you have to work together. If you go to your partner and you say, hey, I think we have some negative cycles of communication and I would like to fix it. Guess what they're probably going to say? No, we don't. What are you talking about? You're the one who always brings all this shit up. That's what's going to happen. I'm sorry, but that's what's going to happen. If you're in negative communication, that is going to be the response, unless the person you're talking to is incredibly deep feeling, sensitive, emotionally woke. That feels like an attack. It feels like a blame, especially if you've been in the blame game for a while. So I encourage you, if you want to break out of a cycle of communication, to take responsibility for at least a month. And just take the deepest level of responsibility you can possibly take for all of your interactions and harmonize your energy. Let's say somebody leaves the refrigerator door open and you're like, I pay the electric bill and this shit. Your normal response would be like, this shit always happens. How could you be so forgetful? What an idiot you are. I can't believe you left the refrigerator door open. You don't even do anything. You're useless. Blah, 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 blah. Maybe that's your normal response. Nobody likes to see the refrigerator door left open. That's fair, right? And I want to just briefly say, your feelings are valid. Communication isn't about destroying your feelings. Communication isn't about, I'm not saying you're not allowed to be pissed off. Yeah, you should be pissed off. You should feel however you feel. If you feel like that person's a fucking idiot for leaving the refrigerator door open, sure, feel it. I'm not saying don't feel it. I'm just saying to call them an idiot is not an effective form of communication. It's not a productive way of achieving a higher level result where your life is filled with more harmony. I want you to have the greatest life you can have. The way that you do that is through effective communication and through focusing your own energy. You are allowed to be pissed off. You are allowed to be angry and upset. And you're allowed to tell them and be heard. But not everybody is able to see the deeper reality when you're calling them an idiot. It's tough, I know. Just want to go around calling everyone idiots. It's not effective. So what can you do? Let's say that this happens and you're trying to practice a higher form of communication. Take responsibility for your own energy. Say, wow, this is really annoying and I'm really upset. How can I understand? How can I empathize with where the other person was? This is huge. Okay, maybe write this down too. When you're trying to communicate during a conflict, the first thing you should do is feel your emotions. The second thing you should do is try to empathize and understand why the other person did what they did or where they're at. You're building a bridge. You're building an energy bridge between your two hearts. So if you try to empathize with the other person and you say, what would it take for me to leave the refrigerator door open? I'd have to be in an emergency. I'd have to be drunk. I'd have to be distracted beyond all distraction, right? Maybe you can't even wrap your head around it. So you go to the person, and now you're curious instead of angry, right? Now you're like, how? How did this happen? So you can come to them and you can say, hey, I noticed that the refrigerator door was left open, and I was wondering, like, what you were going through when that happened, because I want to support you in being in a grounded state as to where you notice your surroundings more. I want to support you to support both of us to take care of our home. No anger, no judgment. You are still communicating what you want to communicate. And let's say you still actually are angry. After you talk to them about it, then you can come in and say, yeah, so understand them, empathize with them, and then say, okay, it's really hard for me to see the refrigerator door be open. So how can, if there's a way that they can support you, then you ask them that. You say, I would really appreciate it if you didn't leave the refrigerator door open. Let's work on a solution together. Let's work on a solution together. Your anger is valid. Your anger is important. And it's important for whoever you're with to understand your experience and care about it too. Otherwise, it's just a one-way communication. After you practice harmonizing your own emotions, your partner is going to pick up on that. Whoever you're communicating with is going to pick up on your ability to empathize and your ability to set your ego aside. And if they try to take a jab at you, let's say, and they're like, well, you are just so greedy with all your money. And you're like, what? No, I'm not. Because it hits a trigger, right? Like, I'm not greedy. I'm so generous. Like, blah, blah, blah. Do what you can to not engage in that type. You can say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I want you to be happy. And I want to be happy too. That is like if a confetti cannon just went over your fight. Like, if you're in the middle of a fight and you say, you know what? I just want you to be happy, and I want to be happy too. I want us to both be happy. I want to find harmony. I really would love to find a solution where we both feel heard and understood. If you can say those words in the middle of a fight, you will blow shit up. Some people might even get violent at that point, literally, because it's too much for their brains to handle. Violent people. I don't mean just anybody's gonna lose it. I've just been in some really intense situations. So if you can do that, a rational, reasonable person who has some semblance of awareness with their emotions is going to say, holy shit. Yeah. What are we doing? Let's find a higher ground. If they're still hot and they're still angry, they're going to be like, you're just trying to get out of this. Like, you're just trying to escape the fact that it's your fault. Again, just be like, I take partial responsibility for this situation. Takes two to tango. And I'm also taking responsibility for healing it. So I really want to find a solution and find harmony. Fighting like this is boring. These are the things that I say to people, and they don't always like it. But you are carving the way for higher understanding, for higher communication. What do you do when your partner is not very empathic? Then it's about logic. It's about communicating your energy with logic. Figure out how you have to do double the work. You have to figure out how they understand the world. And you have to figure out how they express their emotions. So let's say that you are really hurt and your partner doesn't get it. Maybe you say to them, hey, when's the last time you were really hurt? I'm trying to express to you that I'm hurt. You know, you can kind of try to connect them with their emotional reality. Like, hey, I think I've seen you be upset about certain things. I'm upset about this and I need support. So when we talk about connecting with people, a lot of times we just want to be heard. We just want to express ourselves. We just want to be heard. But in that expression, we trigger the other person's ego and then they get mad. So if you say, hey, it really hurt my feelings that you like aren't paying attention. And then they're like, I'm always paying attention. Well, nothing was solved in that case, right? So when you're communicating your feelings, realize I want to be heard. So try to figure out, one, what you want, and two, how to get there. You have to do double the work. If you have two people who in a conversation who understand all these concepts, you're going to be golden. But what you're doing is you're taking all these tools and you're trying to do the work of two people to smooth out negative communication. So if you say, hey, I want to be heard, I want my feelings to be heard, but you know it's going to trigger somebody else's emotional state, then you can say, hey, this upset me and it would really help me in the future if blah, 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 blah. Do you think that's something that we could do? Hey, it really hurts me when you're texting on your phone when I'm telling you about my day. Do you think that we could take 5 minutes after the day just to have our phones down so that I can feel heard? Instead of, you fucking dick, put your phone down, I'm telling you about my day. See the two paths? You're giving a solution. Unicult is a solutions-based organization. And we are here to find solutions for everything. Vibrating on different frequencies, it's hard to communicate. Do the work of two people, understand the other person's vibration, understand their goals, their motivations, how they see the world, what they want, what they need, and then offer a solution that creates harmony for both of you. It requires an incredible sense of awareness. And Peter said, you know, a lot of times when you're in these types of conflict, you have strong emotions. And I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying take a second to cool down. Because when you're in a violent feeling, you're going to speak from a violent place. If something happens, I mean, what's the difference? I've been violent before. If something happens and I get really upset and I respond instantly, I might hit somebody. I might. I have very strong emotions. And if I respond from that emotional place, there is the potential for me to be physically violent to myself or to others. So it's really important for me to take a second. What's the difference between physical violence and verbal violence? Very little. Sometimes verbal violence can hurt more. We all have the potential to be violent in our anger. So we have to take a beat. That doesn't mean that we aren't going to be heard. That doesn't mean we aren't going to be validated. In fact, it means the opposite. It means that we are actually setting ourselves up for more success in communication, more success in being heard, more success in creating a reality where we're truly supported. Let me see if there's any other questions I can answer. Yeah, Cookie Bun. Cookie Bun says it's your reaction that's making you upset, not the other person's actions. I do have a great video on this. And as someone with BPD, it's really interesting to watch myself feel emotions and to feel like this person is doing this to me. Somebody leaves the fridge door open and you say, this person is trying to drive me crazy. This person is trying to hurt me. First of all, they're probably not. And second of all, for some people, they might, I don't know, it might be very rare, but some people might see an open fridge. Let's say you're a bajillionaire. You see an open fridge, you're like, huh, and you close it, it's not a big deal. But if you're coming from a place of scarcity with money, you're going to look at that as dollars leaking out the door, and you're going to be stressed. So you have to recognize there are different ways to respond to the same situation, depending on your mind state, depending on your own vibration of lack or abundance, depending on your own vibration of security or lack. So when you respond to somebody or when someone's doing something to you, you feel like they're doing it to you. They're probably not trying to hurt you. Sometimes they are, in which case you can still respond like a cool cucumber, and you can still respond with love, because you have to recognize they're just hurt. They're trying to communicate their hurt to you. I recommend that you watch this Cam Church a couple times because there's a lot of important content in here. And I think that when we have these cycles, it's easy not to recognize the patterns that we fall into because of the way that we communicate. I would recommend wait like a week and start and notice your communication with your friends and family, and then come back and rewatch this. Maybe we can do it for Cam Church Review. The Unicult members are doing Cam Church Review on Wednesdays. So maybe next Wednesday is a good time to revisit this one and rewatch it, because this takes incredible practice. It takes a lot of focus and a lot of understanding. When do you give up trying to communicate? Violet says. Amazing, amazing question. I was in a situation that was impossible. And I put everything into it because I believed that we could reach harmony. And I harmonized my internal state completely. But that ended up triggering them only more. And I tried to find harmony with them. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And we were just on two different paths. So I could personally, if I am determined to communicate with someone, I give up only when they don't want to communicate with me anymore. As long as they're willing to try, so am I. That doesn't mean you're going to reach everyone. That doesn't mean it's going to be a great situation. I don't know that that's the best advice for me to give to you. It's a very hardcore reality that caused me a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. But I also am very high-minded in my morals, and I will go into battle for things that I truly believe in. And love is something I truly believe in. And communication is something I truly believe in. Being understood and understanding someone else's reality is my passion. For you, I would say draw the line whenever you feel unsafe. Draw the line whenever you feel like you aren't heard. I would say do your best to explain to someone, hey, I'm trying to find harmony with you. We have to get it together. And if we don't, I have to set up boundaries. Boundaries are good. The universe created boundaries for me in the situation I'm referring to. I wouldn't have created them, and neither would have the other person. There was a lot of love between us despite our inability to communicate. But the universe created boundaries, and those have been good for us. So if you don't do it, the universe will. But it's good to practice boundaries. It's good to be safe. It's good to, and when I say safe, I don't just mean physical. I mean verbal violence is, if you're being attacked, even energy violence, you know, I know that that sounds kind of hippy-dippy, but it's real. If someone has just like shitty energy and they're just always glaring at you, you know, it's like that is a form of violence. They might not be meaning to do it, and a lot of times people aren't meaning to do violence. If I have gotten hurt and I have actually hit someone, I haven't meant to hit them. I've just meant to protect myself. My feeling is, that's the end of the beginning and the end of my feeling is you know, just pain. It's just pain. And so that's why taking that moment and settling your pain and feeling it and processing it and saying, okay, where's the solution here? How can we move forward instead of backwards together so we both can be happy? That's when you get your answer, and that's when you get your tactical understanding of entering in. All right, thank you for joining me for this beautiful cam church. Thank you for all your compassion and understanding. I love love. I love the people I love, and I always will, even if we don't understand one another. There's a level of soul understanding that sometimes happens that cause us to go into these situations where it's hard to understand each other on the physical plane in our language. But at the root, usually there's love, so it's about getting to that divine understanding of the fact that we're all one. Thank you for all the donations. Thank you for your continued attention and support. We'll do a closing prayer. Shop at Unicult Supply Co. Send me your money. If this cam church helped you, I mean, think about it. If this cam church helps you, and you go about your life, and then you're able to end all of your negative communication patterns, what is it worth? Send me your money. Who else is talking like this? No one. This is straight from heaven. You're welcome. Spirit of Uni, bless all the members of Unicult. Bless all the people who are in this chat today. Bless all the people who watch this video in the past, present, and future. Bless all the members of Unicult. Bless the whole world. Have a great Sunday. Have a great week. We'll see you next week, I believe. Maybe not. We might have to skip next week. But I'll let you know on Twitter and on Instagram. Uni bless.